Yes, thank you, dear members. Thank you for being part of this discussion. I implore you to subscribe this video, like, comment, so that we improve. And please do share so that your friends also can learn more from this video. You can also ask some of the questions which you don't understand. You can ask so that we we make you at par with the rest. So today we will probably be looking at sale of goods, and we shall be looking at the transfer of title. That is the nemo, that quod and habet. That is the principle under the transfer of title, which states that the seller cannot transfer to the buyer a better title than he himself has. So if you're not the owner of the good, you cannot sell it to another person without the knowledge of the original owner. You can look at section 29 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. You cannot pass a valid title which you don't have to another person. But if the original owner of the goods is aware of the passing of that title, then that passing of title will be valid. You can find that under section 29 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. This principle of nemo that quod habet was introduced by Lord Denning in the case of Bishopsgate Motor Finance Corporation Limited versus Transport Brakes Limited. Two principles were laid here by Lord Denning. Lord Denning stated that in the protection of property, no one can give a better title than he has. That reflects the principle of nemo dat quod habet. You cannot pass a better title than you yourself has. The second principle, which we shall find under the exceptions to this rule, deals with the protection of commercial transactions. He stated that a person who takes in good faith and for value without notice should get a better title. That is a second principle, a principle of a bona fide purchaser for value without notice. So once you purchase that good or product in good faith, you'll hold a better title. So these are the two principles laid down under the case of Bishopsgate Motor Finance Corporation Limited versus Transport Brakes Limited. Principle laid down by Lord Denning. So we have the exceptions to this general rule. Remember, the general rule is that you cannot pass a better title that you don't have. But there are exceptions to this general rule. The first exception to this general rule is sorry. The first exception to this general rule is is estoppel. So estoppel is merely where one is precluded from denying the truth of anything that he has represented as a fact, although it's not in the fact. So once once the owner of the good behave in a manner which made the seller believe, which made the seller or the buyer believe that um, they hold a valid title to that property. The title will have been validly transferred to the buyer. So the original owner will be precluded from denying the truth. You'll be precluded. That's what is meant by estoppel. You'll be precluded from denying the fact. You cannot deny. For example, if you give your phone to someone, and during the transaction, when when that friend of yours is selling your phone to another person, and you're there during that transaction, and you did not say anything about the transaction, it will presume that you agreed that the person selling that item can transfer the title of that property. That is estoppel by conduct. So the second the second exception to the nemo that quod habet is a sale by seller after sale, a sale by seller after sale. Um, you can find this under section 32, section 32 clause 1 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. Seller after selling, where a seller after selling remains in possession of the goods, he can resell, he can resell. Thus, a better title will have been transferred. Let us look at section 32, clause 1. It states that where a person who has sold goods continues or is in possession of the goods or of the document of title to the goods, the delivery or transfer by that person or by an agent acting for him or her of the goods or document of title under any sale, pledge, or other disposition of the goods to any person receiving them in good faith and without notice of the previous sale shall have the same effect as if the person making the delivery or transfer were expressly authorized by the owner of the goods to make the delivery or transfer. However, still under these sections, the buyer should not know that the goods have been sold. However, if the buyer knew that the goods had been sold but still continue to purchase that good, he will not hold a better title to that good. Section 32 plus 1 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. The third exception is sale by buyer in possession. Sale by buyer in possession. A buyer who bought or agrees to buy with the consent of the seller in possession of goods transfers a valid title. A buyer who bought or agrees to buy with the consent of the seller possession of the goods transfers a valid title. That's under section 32, clause 2. It says that where a person who has bought or agreed to buy goods obtains, with the consent of the seller, possession of the goods or the document of title to the goods, the delivery or transfer by that person or by an agent of the goods or document of title under any sale, pledge, or other disposition of them to any person receiving them in good faith and without notice of any lien or other right of the original seller in respect of the goods shall have the same effect as if the person making the delivery or transfer were an agent in possession of the goods or documents of title with the consent of the owner. So even though we just agreed that I'm going to buy that phone, but I haven't bought, but we agreed. So you gave that phone to be in my possession. As the buyer, I can sell the phone to another person. I have that right to sell. Though I just agreed, but I haven't bought the phone. It's just by argument I can sell the phone away. I am not the owner. I am not the owner, but I can sell. That is under section 32, clause 2. Another exception is under section 30 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. Section 30. Sale under voidable title. Where the seller has a voidable title, but his title has not been avoided at the time of sale, the buyer acquires a good title. Where the seller has a voidable title, but his title has not been avoided at the time of sale, the buyer will have a good title. That is under section 30 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. Another exception is sale under special powers. Sometimes a court can order. A court is not the owner of your house or your car, but it can order that you sell his or her car for this and this purpose. So the court would assign the bailee with the power to sell that goods. Remember, the bailee is not the owner of the good. He does not have any title to the good, but with the power codified to him or her by the court, he or she can sell out the goods, and the buyer of that goods will acquire a better title. The sixth exception is resale by unpaid seller. Resale by unpaid seller. Remember, an unpaid seller has a right to resell under Section 31, Clause 1 of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. An unpaid seller has a right to resell the goods, notwithstanding that the property in the goods may have passed to the buyer. Remember, at this point, the seller is no longer the owner of the goods. But when he is still in possession of that good, he can resell them. When the buyer failed to pay for the price, they can resell them. So that is how short it is. That is all about the transfer of title. That is all about the principle of nemo, quod, habet. Know what the principle means and know its exceptions. It is introduced under by law Denning under the case of Bishopsgate Motor Finance Corporation Limited versus Transport Brakes Limited. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. please support, comment, like, and ask any question you want to know. We shall be happy to help. Thank you.